Hey, what's happening, guys? Dan Darrow here with another Options and Play video update. So, I hope you all had a great week. Got a Fed week, which always makes things a little bit more interesting. Um, this coming week, obviously not going to have a FOMC rate decision, but we are inching closer and closer to earnings season. So, for me, anticipation builds. That usually means things start to pick up a little bit more. In terms of schedule news, it's not going to be super busy, but there are a couple big names, and it's really only going to increase kind of steadily now through the beginning of October once we get that official kickoff. So back half of September, well, really like the last full week of September, and earnings season is so close I can smell it. So lots to look forward to. So Monday before the open, actually Monday before the open and Monday after the close, there's really no major name. That's been kind of the case recently. For whatever reason, just not a whole lot Monday. Tuesday before the open, AutoZone. They're looking for about 62 points for AutoZone. Honestly, quarter after quarter, it really seems to price in like these huge moves, and it really just doesn't come anywhere near moving that much. Um, it's right off its 52-week high, right? The thing looks super strong. Volume is really light on this thing. The options aren't really that heavily traded, so kind of tough from an options trading perspective. Both O'Reilly and Advanced Auto Parts, which are peers, had weak reports recently. So I would definitely be more cautious on AutoZone, especially after the run it's had, where it's trading on the chart. Either way, though, probably going to be an avoid for me just because options are expensive. Really doesn't have a great history of moving either. All right. Also, Tuesday morning, BlackBerry. So, I haven't traded this one in a while. Pricing in about 75 cents this time around. Cut guidance last quarter, so that's here. It was hit pretty hard. Um, it hasn't been in play. It's made moves, but I just feel like it hasn't been in play, like quote unquote, in a long time. I mean, it doesn't really get a lot of attention. Um, I haven't traded in a while, but I guess what's maybe interesting about it is that 75 cents, what they're looking for, it's averaged closer to like almost like a dollar the last two quarters. So options don't really seem too bad. It seems like they leave a little bit of room. Maybe if that's something you have a lot of conviction with, take a look at it because the option pricing isn't too bad compared to what it's moved just recently. CarMax. So here's another one Tuesday before the bell. 575 ish is what they're looking for. It had a nice 1 day move back in end of March, April when it reported, and I feel like last quarter just back to like the kind of same old CarMax where it just like numbers were okay, or this best were the number they actually raised guidance, but the move was only only kind of all right. I mean, really nothing special, and that's been just been kind of its mo for long stretches. Um, I will say that it has been holding in relatively well, especially when you look at it like on the longer term perspective. So it's been holding in pretty well. Um, it's not it's certainly not cheap from an option pricing perspective, and I would say that you might have to like be like directional on this, or somehow get the debit down just because at 575 that's a little bit more on the high end versus what it tends to move. I guess I would lean maybe cautiously bullish just based off the last couple quarters and the way it's acted, but I also don't know if I'd necessarily be expecting a very big move. All right, after the close Tuesday, here's one of the big reports of the week. Nike, 4.5 points. What's priced in? This quarter is definitely one of the more interesting setups, at least from my perspective on Nike. It's hanging right underneath its 52-week high, and under like this key resistance range up around 90. Had a retail's had a pretty volatile quarter, right? And Nike last quarter was kind of like a non-event. Just really didn't do a whole heck of a lot, and it seems to kind of alternate big moves every other quarter. So didn't do a whole lot last quarter. Had a really big drop at the end of March. So it seems like it's like that alternating pattern where big move, no move, big move, no move. So maybe this is the quarter where you get the bigger move. Um, they did miss last quarter, and there's definitely going to be some China tariff talk in this release. So, like the risk to reward where it's at, you look at the valuation too. It seems to be a little bit more favoring the downside. It was hit for about 6 points in March when they had a weaker report off like the current or kind of like a similar level. So I'm thinking maybe like a staggered strangle, maybe focus the risk more on the bear side on Nike. All right, Wednesday before the open, not really anything of interest to me. Wednesday after the close, KBH pricing in 275. Those are monthly options though, and I'll be honest, I don't really trade the home builders much anymore. I haven't traded them in a long time. And KBH's chart looks absolutely fantastic. So I think this is something I need to start paying more attention to, just the sector in general, because it really seems like it's breaking out. If I go back a little bit further, you can see what I mean by that. So this really seems like it's breaking out, and I feel like in terms of earnings, I'm probably just going to be a spectator and just watch and see what they say. But um, you know, it does seem like there's some real momentum here, and even though like the run's kind of steep, if the numbers are good and last quarter is pretty good, this does seem like it's something that has like some serious power behind it, and it could have plenty more room if it really wants to go. So. Even though I might not play it on earnings, it's definitely something that I'm probably going to start keeping an eye on just from like an overall perspective. Thursday before the open, etc. So market cap wise, one of the bigger names next week. They're pricing in 875, and it hasn't really been an earnings story for a while. It just really steady trending action most of this year, and that trend for the most part remains in place. Right, it's holding the 50-day pretty well. So I feel like trending in place, the trend remains in place, and so approach it from like a trending stock trade perspective. So to me, that means either like a calendar spread or a butterfly targeting a smaller move, muted volatility, basically just a resumption of the trend. I mean, like that's how I approach like these trending trades into these reports. Is you're kind of like targeting like lower overall volatility, but a resumption of the trend. So some sort of bullish bet or some bullish trade, kind of looking for some sort of lower volatility move. Carnival. So another one Thursday morning. 275 is what's expected, and it's actually been hit very hard 2 quarters in a row. So here and here, right? Last quarter, it got knocked down for about $5. So it's priced at only really like half of what it moved last quarter, and it only caught a bid just in the last like week and a half when you had that value rotation, right? So stuff out of momentum into value. So things to note is that you had the hurricane right in the Bahamas, which definitely is going to impact Carnival, and then you also had rising oil prices, and both of those could like hurt a little bit. And after last quarter's like ugly numbers, it just seems like it sets up more for a bearish trade. So I'd be thinking some sort of maybe like speculative bearish position on this, maybe even looking for a move back down to where it was just last week, which is in like the lower 40s. Um, that's it seems like one of like the few next week setting up for like a bearish trade. All right, after the close Thursday, another big one, Micron. So they're pricing in 4 points this time around, and this thing is up over 50% since the last reported, which was right here. And that quarter, the guidance was way below estimates, way below estimates. So it's had a huge run, even though guidance was really ugly last quarter. And these semis, to me, they seem like they're so hard to handicap because it's kind of like everybody's like expecting a big pickup in the second half, but they're just so influenced by these China trade headlines that it just makes for some crazy swings because you get a headline, all of a sudden they like fall apart, but then you get a resumption of trade talks and they rip right back up. Like so much of the forecast is built into the pickup in that demand, so it's really hard to gauge where the expectations are. And, complicating that is the fact that it's had such a huge run since it last reported. It's right at its high of the year. And I don't know. I just feel like it's hard to see a ton of upside from this level like last time. And what I might do, what I might look at is possibly a sympathy trade on Western Digital or Seagate, because those tend to move on the micron numbers. They tend to respond to the micron numbers, and options are usually lower price. So I'd say like maybe look at one of those two, Western Digital or STX, and I'd say like my bias probably to the downside, just based off of the run it's had from last quarter, the run it's had just over the last week, higher expectations, and I don't know. I mean, it seems like it's really tough to expect a ton of upside, just based off where it was like a month and a half, like 2 months ago. And then last but not least, Vail, so MTN. So priced in at 20 points, but those are monthly options. I feel like this could be an interesting one. Been in a pretty tight range, right? Just over the last like month or so. Had a strong quarter in June, and then they had a pretty big acquisition actually in July, and that's probably going to boost numbers. So I feel like I lean maybe slightly more to the bull side on this. Still kind of like clawing its way back up from getting like run over at the beginning of the year. Um, at 20 points, the options are, they're not cheap, but they're also not too bad based off some of the moves it's had. So it has exceeded 20 points a few times over the last year or so. Um, I feel like maybe bullish bias, but also might not be that bad of an idea to possibly look at like a staggered strangle, just because there have been a couple quarters, right, where guidance has been below the street and the thing's really gotten hit pretty hard. So I feel like I lean a little bit more to the upside, but also might be worth it to pick up maybe like something like cheap out of the money on the downside just in case slip up and the thing gets hit, because we've seen some pretty nasty moves lower over the last year. And then, like I said, nothing before. Vail is basically the last one, because Friday it's really nothing. There's actually nothing scheduled, so there's really nothing to focus on. So um, that does it. All right. So basically wrapping up September, and then we're on to October, on to earnings season, and things are going to pick up so quick. There's going to be so much going on in such a short period, and especially like I feel like the October November quarter is really creates some huge volatility to get that year-end positioning. So it's usually one of my favorite earnings seasons, just because you tend to get some really crazy moves. So I'm really looking forward to it. So questions or comments, love to hear from you guys. And if you like these videos, or if you just want more information on options in play, on what I do over there, please reach out or click the link in the bottom of this video. Definitely get more information, follow up for that. All right. So have a wonderful night, and I'll talk to you all tomorrow.